All right, since there's a lot of confusion between hypersanity, the concept, like the canonical concept, and my framework, the hypersane framework, I want to start by explaining what Sartre did, because Sartre did the exact same thing. Sartre took something that existed and then made it his own. He scaffolded it into his own metaphysical skyscraper. So before I get to the hypersanity part, allow me to proceed. Jean-Paul Sartre engaged in a kind of intellectual scaffolding, adapting and transforming earlier philosophical ideas, especially from Heidegger, Husserl, and Hegel, rather than copying in a plagiaristic sense. He was a synthesizer who reworked concepts to serve his existentialist goals. Sartre did not plagiarize, but rather adapted and recontextualized the ideas of others into a new existential framework. He practiced philosophical engineering, scaffolding from deep foundations to build his own metaphysical skyscraper. So imagine you buy a building and then you completely change it to where it's no longer the original building. That's scaffolding. That's literal scaffolding. Sartre was deeply influenced by Martin Heidegger's Being and Time. He borrowed core ideas like being in the real world, Dasein, transformed into being for itself, être pour soi, and in being itself, être in soi. Thrownness appears as the facticity of existence. However, Sartre secularized and pathologized Heidegger's ontological project, removing the transcendental concern and rooting it in radical freedom and anguish. So that's exactly what I've done, is I've made it more ontological than spiritual. It's nothing spiritual about it. Husserl's phenomenology forms the technical backbone of being and nothingness. Intentionality, epoch, and the phenomenological reduction are all present. Sartre expands Husserl's egoless consciousness into a theory of subjectivity with consciousness as last. Sartre scaffolded Husserl's method to explore consciousness not as a structure, but as freedom in the face of nothingness. Sartre and Hegel. Sartre rewrites the master-slave dialectic from the phenomenology of the spirit into his own theory of the look, le regard, and conflictual intersubjectivity. Where Hegel sees eventual synthesis, Sartre sees perpetual conflict. Hell is other people. Sartre's scaffolding approach. Sartre rarely invented philosophical tools from scratch. He didn't invent anything from scratch. He built frameworks using Husserl's method, Heidegger's ontology, and Hegel's dialectic. The same way that I use Vedic, Gnostic, and perennial philosophy to explain even things about psychology and archetypes and not analyzing anything in the cinema. Like I can break anything down using my framework, but rewired them to save his emphasis on freedom, responsibility, and negation. Example of transformed concepts. Heidegger, being in the world for being for itself, ontological negation. Husserl, intentionality versus consciousness as being what it is not. Hegel, master-slave dialectic versus the look/intersubjective conflict. Kierkegaard, despair in individual faith versus anguish, bad faith, and self-deception. Here's some books if you want to read more about that. Sartre did not plagiarize. He rather adopted and recontextualized the ideas of others into a new existential framework. He practiced philosophical engineering, scaffolding from deep foundations to build his own metaphysical skyscraper, the way I've done with my obsidian. Like that's what my vault is. My vault is a metaphysical skyscraper essentially. So no, I did not unknowingly do anything wrong by calling my project HyperSanity, and it is not technically stealing. Naming a project framework or philosophy is not infringement unless it violates very specific legal conditions, which this does not. What I've done falls squarely within normal, legitimate intellectual practice. Words and abstract concepts are not copyrightable. Copyright protects specific expressions, not ideas, themes, or terms. Hypersanity as a word or concept cannot be stolen unless copied from a protected work in a directly derivative way. There is the book on hypersanity, but the book itself is not hypersanity. For trademark infringement, all of the following must be true. The term is a registered trademark in the same domain, and are using it commercially. My usage causes consumer confusion about source or endorsement. which I have been very outspoken as to what it is. People are confused because they don't put in the work. That's their failure, not mine. My case is no known registered trademark dominating the space. I am not impersonating a company or product. My usage is philosophical, technical, and conceptual. There is no confusion with an existed branded system. Trademark infringement threshold is not met. Even if a similar term exists elsewhere, independent development is fully legitimate. Philosophy, systems theory, and frameworks routinely reuse and recontextualize language. I am not copying structure, branding, or code. I'm only using a descriptive term I developed meaningfully. So I took the word HyperSanity and then I put in a whole bunch of my own theories and ideas and philosophies, and some of them existing, and scaffolded those. So it's completely original. This is normal in philosophy. Logos, nous, and gnosis are reused for millennia. It'd be like someone trying to brand gnosis, right? Like you can't do that. That's like public domain. Psychology, systems theory, and software frameworks. I am doing the opposite of theft. Theft would look like lifting someone else's framework wholesale, like the atheist experience does, passing it off as theirs or mine deceptively, which I have not done, hiding origins, which I have not done via this video and many others. What I'm doing instead, defining terms explicitly, expanding them, differentiating them, and applying them in original ways. That is legitimate authorship, not appropriation. Which I've already done all of this. If you want extra clarity, define HyperSanity in my own words. I already do and have. Timestamp my work, already have. Canvases, databases, and I have chat logs to prove that I'm the one that invented the HyperSanity framework. Avoid claiming exclusivity over the word itself. I don't claim exclusive ownership over HyperSanity, just the HyperSanity framework. Document lineage and distinctions, which my operating system and org structure already enforces. And I have archives that prove that I'm the one that created it. I did nothing unethical. I did nothing illegal. I did not steal. I'm operating well within philosophical, technical, and creative norms. If someone accuses me otherwise, that accusation reflects conceptual ignorance about IP, not a flaw in my work.